A large-scale Russian drone and missile attack on Kyiv killed 6 people and injured at least 52 others overnight.
Like France and the UK, Canada and Malta have now also announced they will recognize the state of Palestine in September.
A Russian drone and missile attack on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv killed at least 6 people, including a 6-year-old boy, and injured 52 overnight, Ukrainian authorities said Thursday. The head of the city's military administration said the number of injured in the overnight attack was likely to rise. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the main target of the strike was the capital and that it inflicted significant damage on residential buildings and areas. At least 27 locations across Kyiv were targeted, with Russian strikes also hitting 4 other Ukrainian regions, with some 300 drones and 8 missiles. Russia has continued to bombard Ukraine with attacks, despite US efforts to broker a ceasefire deal. On Tuesday, US President Donald Trump expressed frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin and shortened a self-imposed deadline for a truce from 50 to 10 to 12 days.
Canada and Malta both announced on Wednesday that they will formally recognize the state of Palestine in September. It follows the same announcements made by France and the United Kingdom, who also said they would offer formal recognition at the United Nations General Assembly that month.
Canada has long been committed to a two-state solution. An independent, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security.
The move to recognize Palestine as a state comes amid a renewed push in Europe to put pressure on Israel to stop its devastating war on Gaza. Malta and Canada's announcements came as high-level representatives met at a United Nations conference on a two-state solution, which Israel has opposed to and therefore boycotted the meeting. Like Israel, its close ally, the United States, also decided to boycott the UN conference.
The European Union, Arab League and other countries urged Israel to commit to a Palestinian state and for Hamas to disarm at a high-level UN conference. The so-called New York Declaration sets out a phased plan to end the nearly 8-decade conflict and ongoing war in Gaza. The plan would culminate with a demilitarised Palestine living peacefully with Israel and their integration into the wider Mideast region. It envisions the Palestinian Authority governing and controlling all Palestinian territory, with a transitional administrative committee established after a ceasefire in Gaza.
Hamas must end its rule of Gaza and hand over its weapons to the Palestinian Authority. And we stand ready to invite regional and international forces to be deployed in full coordination with the State of Palestine as a part of a stabilization and protection mission.
The declaration supports the deployment of a UN mission to protect Palestinians, oversee the transfer of power and monitor the ceasefire. It condemned both Hamas's October the 7th attack on Israel and the subsequent Israeli offensive in Gaza.
US President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that he plans to impose a 25% tariff on goods from India and an additional import tax because of India's import of Russian crude oil. In a post on social media, Trump accused India of being Russia's largest buyer of energy at a time when, quote, everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. The U.S. leader criticized what he described as India's strenuous and obnoxious trade barriers. The sanctions on India come amid Trump's threats to impose tariffs of up to 100% on Russia's trading partners if President Vladimir Putin doesn't cease hostilities in Ukraine. India relies on Russia for around 35% of its crude oil imports, reaching a 2-year import peak in June of this year, according to local media. It also imports an estimated $80 billion in Russian military equipment. Trump on Monday presented a new shorter deadline of 10 to 12 days for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine.
Can the Danish model of migration become European? For years, Denmark was considered the black sheep of migration policy because of its highly restrictive approach to asylum rights. But as the bloc moved gradually to the right, the controversial ideas espoused by Copenhagen gained popularity and are now embraced by the political mainstream.
I remember when I started in this post 3 years ago, I was in the GHA Council, and the Austrian minister was the only one who supported these notions back then. And now it seems there's a lot of more countries that have rallied around the notion that we should get democratic control of the migrant flows, and I'm just very, very happy that this is the case.
At the top of the to-do list is outsourcing. Denmark is leading the push to establish centers outside European soil to transfer rejected asylum seekers. The idea has been accepted by the European Commission but remains plagued by financial, technical and ethical questions. Humanitarian organizations warn outsourcing will waste taxpayers' money and lead to human suffering. Amid the criticism, Copenhagen has reframed the conversation to argue that a hardline approach on migration is the only way for progressive politicians to remain in power.
I believe if you're in a social democratic or workers' party championing especially skilled and unskilled workers, then I believe migration is often a burden for the constituents, and working class communities have taken the largest part of the task of integrating people in local communities and the labor market, and therefore if you're a party that are representing low skilled, low paid people, then you should be quite restrictive around migration.
Denmark has a privileged position to promote his vision as it assumes the 6-month presidency of the EU Council. Needless to say, migration is at the very top of the agenda.
Ever wondered how electric vehicles know how much charge is left in their battery? The state of charge, which tells you how charged the car is, relies on complicated calculations of current or voltage, sometimes adjusted for temperature. If it's too low, the vehicle might shut down unexpectedly. If it's too high, the battery could overcharge, leading to overheating and, in rare cases, fire. This risk is why the EV battery industry hasn't actively adopted artificial intelligence yet, despite the potential of increased efficiency.
You have problems with proving causality and liability with an AI component because it's black box. You can't look inside and say what went wrong. So if an AI component fails, it's usually something to do with either the hardware or the training data.
Experts say integrating AI into the battery estimation system could make EVs go farther and last longer.
If you can use the sensors, one temperature sensor, one voltage sensor and one current sensor directly into an AI, that AI is more competent to estimate the charge and will adapt more quickly to new releases of battery packs and stuff like that, because the old way is very cumbersome and slow. So there are benefits for AI.
But it's also a task where mistakes can literally ignite into serious trouble. Skoglund's team intentionally fed the AI faulty data to see how it acted, and so that the output was way off.
It's important to do this kind of test because we proved that it was really not that robust.
As a solution, the team suggests a system that keeps AI in check and shuts it down when it acts out, which they call a safety cage. This isn't the only way to bring AI into EV batteries, but researchers say this is one of the most realistic solutions.
Als ich das Café eröffnet habe und die Lampe hing Queer in France und klar war, dass es ein queerer Laden wird, fing es halt an mit Übergriffen, mit Kot an den Fenstern, mit Sachen, die gegen das Fenster geworfen wurden oder ins Lokal, verbale Attacken, körperliche Angriffe, Feuerlöscher in die erste Etage in meinem Büro, Scheibenwischer abgebrochen, Scheiben eingeschlagen. Also ein Terrorakt.
Besonders gravierend ist auch der Anstieg queerfeindlicher Gewalttaten um 40%. LGBTIQ-Feindlichkeit hat in rechten autoritären Ideologien eine Scharnierfunktion, ähnlich wie Antisemitismus und Sexismus und Antifeminismus. Hier zeigt sich exemplarisch die zunehmende Aktions- und Gewaltorientierung der sich rasant radikalisierenden, sehr jungen Neonazi-Szene, die im vergangenen Jahr unter anderem Teilnehmerinnen von Christopher Street Days und Breitparaden attackierten, mit dem Ziel, Angst zu verbreiten.
Wir sind viele Hunderttausende und wir sind auch mehr als in den Vorjahren. Und das ist wirklich ein kraftvolles, tolles Zeichen für mehr Gleichberechtigung.
Ich habe noch nie so viele Menschen auf dem CSD wie heute gesehen und es berührt mich wahnsinnig, dass auch so viele andere Sexualitäten außerhalb der queeren Szene da waren.